Well,
Oops,
it's going to be bourbon, so.
Yeah, that's
Appropriate.
yeah. If you went through the trouble of bringing those, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Are they
Oh, they're all different,
branded as
actually.
oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
CaskX and 15. Oh, I know he sent you the 15 stars.
Yeah. Dropped off at my door.
We also got 15 stars.
It was good.
In my old Kentucky home. Kentucky.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Kentucky Commons Radio Hour. I'm Michael Moeller in Louisville, Kentucky, joined by David Satterley,
Hello.
John Renane,
Hello.
and Sarah Havens, the Bar Belle.
Hello. How's it going?
Good, Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
You have your blog, the Bar Belle, where you kind of discover you've been doing that for a while now.
Yeah. Since 2006, I believe.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of the nightlife of Louisville. That's
Yeah.
what you cover. But in addition to that, you've done a whole lot of things over the years. You're, I'm going to say, a beverage journalist. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
You've written for publications, both locally here in Louisville, like Leo Weekly and Insider Louisville, when Insider Louisville was a thing. But then also nationally, Bourbon Plus, Alcohol Professor, a bunch of national pubs focusing on the beverage world.
Yes. Mostly predominantly bourbon. But, I'll try anything.
In addition to that, you're also the director of whiskey for CaskX, I
Yes.
believe.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So before we talk about all of those things, we usually open up the show with a beer, but this time we're actually going to open it up with a bourbon because we just wanted to share a bourbon with you as well.
Okay, nice.
And it's
David,
kind of a special bourbon.
Oh,
it is.
Wow.
David, tell us about this bourbon.
So
there's a
sometimes
note.
there
a
is
special
note.
bourbon with a special story.
Wow.
There's a story. Some people refer to like a lucky listener. We're like lucky host.
Oh,
I told a very unfortuitous story about my own personal bourbon collection. I lost around the ballpark of maybe $3,500 in collectible bourbon to a very presumptuous Airbnb guest.
Allegedly.
Oh, no.
Allegedly.
Yeah, so
Ew.
Still in litigation.
did it so in a true capitalist mindset, I decided to Airbnb my house for Derby.
Yeah.
But in a realistic way, I tried to rent it out a couple months in advance to get a couple reviews and get things rolling. Had a couple different places I could stay. Everyone was very amenable because I was also buying their food and whatnot. So like any good Kentuckian, I had a lot of bourbon in my house,
Right.
and I
As you
offered several very like shelf bottles that were just kind of replaceable, if you will,
Uh-huh.
to the guests, and most of them were from out of town. So I'd say, hey, if you're here, if you're just hanging out, if you're gonna have a drink before you go out,
Right.
feel free to crack
Roadie.
into this. But also don't touch anything in the cabinet, because the cabinet is where the cabinet stuff is, and we don't want you to go in the cabinet. So had several successful bookings.
But you didn't lock it?
But they did doth go in the cabinet.
They did.
The
doth
serpent
go in the
slithered
cabinet.
down and said, that stuff in the cabinet's probably the good stuff. They're trying to hide it from you.
Yeah, so the first booking I took for a week, which was terrifying because, you just pack up your stuff and leave for a week. And it's not
Wow.
like the fun kind of vacation. It's like, I'm going to make $1,800, but also that's my house. So
Right.
did that and then came home to what was a half of a MSD trash can full of bourbon.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
So I told this story at one point in time, and then we received this bottle of Peerless
From one of our anonymous Patreons.
From our
So
anonymous
whoever
Patreon.
it was, thank you very much. But it had a little
Wow.
note attached to
There's
it.
a little note. It says, to David Satterley, that's me. Sorry for your loss, ... Here's something to help restock your bourbon cellar. A Patreon fan. So thank you, a
Aw.
Patreon fan.
And it is a very nice bottle
Yeah.
of the small batch Peerless.
It's the inaugural release.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ooh.
The straight bourbon whiskey. What is it? 54.9 proof. And that's, I guess, the little batch number down there or whatever.
That was
So,
the first bottle of
Yeah.
Peerless that they released to the public.
yeah, which
Very
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we've been saving it for a special occasion. We thought this would be a good time to crack it
Wow.
and give it a try. It smells great.
Gosh.
We'll just do little nips of this for everybody here.
I've always really enjoyed what Peerless
Oh,
is.
yeah.
And it's just a good tour. Amy Healy's still there, presumably. So shout out to Amy Healy.
Great tour. They've actually started it to where they're doing kind of like drop-in tours. So I think it's every 15 or 30 minutes. You can stop in and just hop on a tour. It's a little bit abbreviated, but you still go into a tasting room, do that. It's a little shorter and I think a little cheaper too.
And for everybody listening at home, if you want to support the show, you don't have to buy David Satterley an expensive bottle of bourbon. You can.
Yes,
you
you
can.
do.
You can
Yes,
if you
you do.
want. But if you guys are one of the ones supporting us on Patreon, thank you very much. And if you're not, feel free to explore that. Or better yet, just give us a like, give us a review, or share an episode on your social media. That helps more than you guys know. And thanks to everybody who's been doing that so far.
Cheers, Sarah.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming
Cheers.
on.
Thank you so much.
So as we're sipping this,
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how exactly you just got into the current situations and roles that you're finding yourself in.
First, I want to know some names of these bottles that they got into.
Oh yeah.
You're making him relive his
Oh,
trauma.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Normally we pay for John's therapy
Yeah.
with the proceeds of the show, but it might be mine this week. I lost a Elmer T. Lee that was signed
Oh, God.
by Wheatley, not by blanking.
Harlan.
Harlan,
Yeah.
yes. I lost. Oh, geez, I've blocked this out of my memory for so long. Several bottles of Stag Junior, Legendary Barrel Proof.
Yeah, they made out.
Yeah, unknown number of Blantons. Eagle Rare Single Barrel, which is like, I love that. It's just,
Right.
It used to be really easy to get, so I had a fair amount of it.
And they drank all of that in one. I guess they were there.
So
a
that
week.
was my
Okay.
challenge. Is like, how did you get
Yeah.
through
It was a lot.
14 bottles of bourbon?
Right.
And my only, well, I know they had a party, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, fuck you Airbnb for not reimbursing anything, because she admitted to all of it.
Wow.
So, but the other theory that I have is that she was from California and they might have taken it and smuggled it out.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know what value it would be without the bottle. They left all the bottles in the trash. So
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, so you think they just took the liquid?
I think they drank it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
drank it.
100%
I don't know. Well, okay,
Or
but
they
if-
just
100%.
were just like, oh, we don't like this, and then just poured it down the
Yeah.
I actually now remember that
They
was
made a punch out of it, maybe.
that is, yeah.
drain. Oh yeah, they made some jungle juice out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh.
That would be
No.
actually
I don't
the
want
worst.
to. Don't want to talk about this.
It got mixed with like Kool-Aid packets. And
Yeah,
like,
it's just- it was
Yeah.
just
Oh, it's
bourbon and
it's
Cokes.
what the kids are calling Borgs now, I guess.
Oh.
Pour some Everclear in there. And
Yeah.
pour,
It
Put
hurts
some
on so
fruit.
many different levels.
It wasn't a ton of high dollar super rare, but for having collected for 7 or 8 years when
Yeah.
you didn't have to do all the standing in line lottery nonsense and you
Mhm.
just kind of went to the same liquor store every day.
right.
Not every day. God, that sounds terrible. Frequented.
This isn't COVID. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, like they were irreplaceable for me to like, I'm not going to take the effort to go do that again. So
Yeah.
that sucked. And now I'm just thinking about them making like bourbon and Coke with them. And that makes
Yeah.
me sad.
That's
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you have cabinets, lock them.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have Airbnb.
Yeah, just lock your shit up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, sorry about that.
Are you?
But the Peerless is really good. So
Yeah.
small
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
compensation.
Yeah.
This
It's a hot one.
this is
Yeah.
hot.
Is it?
It's a hot boy. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's got some whatever they call that, some heat, some jump.
The nose on that,
Yeah,
though. Gosh.
I like it a lot.
Admittedly not a whiskey taster, so like this, I like it, but I can't really like put a nose on why.
Hmm.
So how
Oh.
did you get involved in
How
all
did
of this
I-
world?
I guess just because I started the Bar Belle column when I was at Leo, like in 2006.
And you were already writing at that point?
Yeah. I right out of college, I got the job as assistant managing editor, and just kind of laid low and learned kind of the ropes and everything. And then, I was 23 at the time when I started there, and I loved Louisville because it was cheap and the bars were open till 4. I was single, and my best friend was in town, and we were going out all the time. So I I would come back on Mondays and have all these crazy stories of like, they always started at the back door, of course.
Oh yeah.
There's this dude that goes around with like beef jerky.
Yeah.
Shout out Rusty.
So anyway, at the time, I think it was my editor was Carrie Stemley and Stephen George, and anyway, they were like, "Why don't you put this into a column because, we need to give you something else to do." So that's kind of how the Bar Belle was born, and I wrote the column for Leo and until I left there, I think in 2013, 12 or 13, and then I took it over to Insider Louisville.
Okay.
For 5 years when I was there, and then that folded. And then I've had a website kind of all along, so I just kind of moved it there, and then Food and Dining magazine here locally, they picked it up, so I have to tame it down a little for them, but other than that, it still runs quarterly, and then I still have my website, so I'll throw up things every now and then when I have time. And so and then I guess how I got into bourbon, I guess. So while I was writing the column, it was kind of when the bourbon boom kind of started happening here in town, like late 2006, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And I would be the one on staff that would get invited to all the distilleries when they had expansion projects, new distilleries, new releases. So I would always kind of cover that. And in college, I never touched bourbon. I thought that's what cowboys drank.
I was going to actually bring up that point because we take it for granted these days that bourbon is, it's almost synonymous with Louisville and, as it well should be in Kentucky at large. But, back in the day, it was just kind of another thing sitting on the shelf. And a lot of times it was like, the cheaper brands or the stuff you'd see more often. And there wasn't there certainly was this culture around it, but it was not blown up like it is today.
No, yeah.
So you were kind of documenting that transition. Do you have any kind of like memorable moments when you're like, oh, something's going on here?
I remember my first distillery tour was when it kind of clicked. I went to Maker's Mark, and I just always thought bourbon was too hot, or there was no flavor in bourbon. It's just something you shot. And then when I took the tour and you learned about the charred barrels and the flavor, and when it goes in, it's completely clear, and then it comes out and with all this flavor and color, and it kind of something just clicked inside of my head. And then I just getting invited on hearing master distillers speak all the time, and something's going to sink in every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, I always enjoyed the story with Rob Senior no, that's not right. But like the baking the bread story of like how they first were like tweaking around with the recipes for Maker's Mark. They're just okay, let's make the bread first out of the grain bill to see if we like the bread.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
And that just emphasizes like, there's flavor in whiskey. It's the same. It's grain and it's good.
Right.
It's sweet.
Grain and yeast and,
Yeah.
So.
I think the show Mad Men helped bourbon blow up too, if I'm being honest. I think there was
they do credit that. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Okay. He drank a lot more rye, but you just see guys like sipping brown liquid and like,
It's that show, and then that kind of inspired the whole cocktail, classic cocktail culture.
What did he drink? Old fashions? Yeah, exactly.
So then all the bartenders
did a great job kind of capitalizing on that, in my opinion. It's a message that started resonating, and we've got the whole like Whiskey Row downtown now, and then just like Bourbon Country and the Bourbon Trail around town. Shout out to them. It's just exciting to see how it's all going. And I don't think it would have happened if there weren't local people documenting it and telling the stories and just like helping put a face to the products and vice versa. So it's super cool.
I mean, it wasn't hard work. Sure. Anytime I got to go to a distillery, I was in.
Do you have any standout interviews or stories over the years? Or like maybe a point of just like, oh wow, like this is actually a really big deal that I'm here.
Yeah, I guess just seeing the people from out of town coming in, like going, I go on some press trips here and there, and Bourbon Classic, which is coming up, they always invite media, from locally and out of state to kind of come in town and go to different distilleries. So I remember, I've been on that media trip for years since they're actually celebrating their 10th Bourbon Classic this time. So I guess I've been on all 10. I don't say no. I don't say no.
You don't. What do you get? Like the golden bourbon bottle or something like that?
So.
Yeah. Whatever the 10-year anniversary is.
Yeah.
Did you see beer? Was beer on your radar at all? Like craft beer or beer in general?
Yeah. I was a big and I went to college in Ohio
Okay.
University.
Did you
So,
see any parallels
yeah.
between the growth of like kind of, more niche bourbon and it kind of developing its own identity and kind of how beer always has like the reputation and it's a lot of self-imposed like whatever, but is the little brother of bourbon kind of around Louisville?
Every bourbon starts as a beer. So,
That's true. Yeah.
And I've met so many distillers, and their story is always like, well, I was into home brewing or, brewing, I was a brewer. And then they just take that one extra step of distillation. And then they're hooked.
I want to get drunker
So,
faster.
Yeah.
No, not really. There's a
Running
ton
up
more
the
that goes
still.
into it than that. And the sour mashing is to me one of the most fascinating parts. And
Yeah.
sour beers are kind of seeing a resurgence
Yeah.
and stuff. But the sour mashing is its whole unique
Mhm.
kind of subculture, or I don't know the terms that bourbon people use as much,
Yeah.
but like sub genre of bourbon, if you will. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a flavor profile that you just can't get
Mhm.
by any other method that's wildly practiced. But I do think that bourbon and beer goes
Oh,
really well
yeah.
with the writing. I always
Mhm.
write drunk at it sober.
Yeah,
do you subscribe to
100%.
that at all?
What'd you say? Right? Drunk?
Edit
Or-
sober.
That's a
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
Hemingway
that's
thing.
good.
Yeah.
I come up with the ideas for things when I'm drinking, but I don't know if I could actually sit there and type them out.
Yeah. In situ inspiration.
Yeah.
And then like
you get the ideas and then
yeah.
you're like, okay,
Well,
that'll
so
be a good.
you have been doing this for a while, and you have
Mhm.
been part of the bourbon boom. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was suggested that you start a column to document the nightlife stories,
Right.
and eventually would be just covering spirits and beverages, cocktails. Do you what is the state of beverage journalism as a class of journalism now? I imagine it's grown. Do you think it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
growing?
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of people out there. I mean, luckily there's a handful in Louisville, kind of like me, that we're all good friends actually. That we were all attending the same things and the same
Mhm.
conferences, and now they're off writing for different magazines or hosting different websites and writing or writing in the same magazine actually.
And there's so
sometimes.
many too. Like there's so
Yeah.
many publications that are out there that have their own loyal readership. And,
Yeah. You
Right.
gotta kind of sort through. Like, I'm thankful for my journalism background and trying to keep objectivity and all that kind of stuff in perspective. I mean, there's some people that they have their own blog, and that's fine too. And they just like, I'm tasting this, and I'm going to put the tasting notes up, and that's fine too. It's just I guess I'm more focused on like profiles and the stories behind the brands. Although for Alcohol Professor, I do kind of rate the new releases and stuff. So
That's been another cool thing to just track. It's kind of goes along with the growth of small businesses and niche kind of, micro distilleries and craft
Mhm.
breweries. But a lot of media has kind of followed the same route. Like, you talked about writing for Leo, kind of like a monolith might be too strong of a word to use for them, but certainly in like the Louisville market, they were kind of a monolithic entity, especially back in early 2000s.
yeah,
Then Insider Louisville, which was kind of a startup franchised,
Mhm.
whatever, but that they've since closed or
Yeah.
sold or whatnot.
Mhm.
And so now kind of moving on to just producing stuff independently or working with smaller publications like Food and Dining. So that's just
Mhm.
kind of an interesting parallel to me.
yeah, yeah.
Bigger is not always better. And that when things do start to, the business model's not working anymore, or things
Mhm.
just have to change, it's often also an opportunity for innovation, which is just,
Yeah.
it's cool to see that you've done that. And a lot of the other Louisville beer writers, find
Yeah,
different
definitely.
mediums to do stuff, and podcasts are now out
Mhm.
and like
Mhm.
social media channels and stuff. So I don't know. That was just a thought that occurred to me, that it's a similar trajectory in all these things, which is probably why they're all good and getting better.
Journalism
these days.
is dying. No.
Yeah, well, it's changing.
I mean, yeah, it's changing.
Just
It's
changing.
changing,
You
not
have to have a
dying.
Substack now or something. I don't know how all
Yeah.
that stuff works.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
I don't know how you keep a job at a community newspaper anymore.
It's
they're
100%.
they're cutting staff and
Or mandatory like furloughs, like for a
Yeah,
week or two.
yeah.
Oh, it's my turn for a furlough. It's so sad.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awful.
So
I do like that you focus on the storytelling aspect, because there is a lot of people, and especially in beer, when you have like Untapped. Are you familiar with it?
Yes,
Yeah, where you're
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
2 caps.
I
And they're
have
like,
this.
yeah, it is like, dark. And it's like, it's a stout. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. So, like,
Ballsy.
I think especially for bourbon where everyone can make this brown juice, and what stands out is really kind of where it came from, how it was produced, the process, and then
Mhm.
what they targeted. And we've done some panels with people about barrel culture and like production stuff and trying to understand how you really hone that in.
Mhm.
Do you, I mean, I think it has, but for my own ignorance, like over the years, distilling has gotten more technical and
Mhm.
it's been more focused on the technical aspect. So when John was asking earlier about like, when did you think the boom was, or when do you think it rose? Do you think that coincided with maybe distilleries taking a more technical, calculated approach as to opposed to these are our recipes, we do this, and we put it in a barrel and see what happens? Or maybe that's never
Yeah.
been the case, but for me, I feel like I've seen more experimental type deals
Mhm.
come around.
I think it's a little mix. A lot of distilleries are automating everything right now. It's no longer one guy kind of looking at tasting the mash and saying this is good or this needs another day. It's everything's computerized. Especially, I don't know if you've been to Bardstown Bourbon Company, but they'll show you the computers, and it's, it's crazy how many. It'll tell you if something's going wrong. Or,
Yeah.
But then there's the distilleries that they still rely on the one guy to like do everything. So it's that neat balance. But the thing with the bourbon tourism is the tourists aren't just, you don't just say this is how bourbon is made and that's it. And here's samples. Like people want to know like is it sour mash or what do you they're getting more technical too. So the distilleries have to kind of up their game tourism wise to show them more behind the scenes and let them blend or make their own blend or let them taste right out of the barrel, like 2 barrels side by side so they can see
Yeah,
for
exactly.
themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, what these taste completely different. How can that be?
Yeah. I think like as the advent of, I'm a technology guy, but as the advent of like Google came around and like you go to
Yeah.
your doctor and you basically have this idea like I have
Rheumatoid arthritis.
I have this disease, and they're like, no, you don't. I feel like bourbon people can sometimes carry that same presumption of
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a fresh mash and you've got 30% rye, and you're like,
Right.
no. You're like, no. You're like,
Right.
no. Okay. But I do like. It's one thing that's always fascinating with beers, treatments, and the barrels and whatnot, and the extent that some of these places are going to, time, temperature, humidity, all these things that interact, in the degree to which they're telling that story, and it gives more craft to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Bardstown Bourbon that I really love and appreciate is their collaborative nature.
Yeah.
They work with other brands, they help other brands grow, and that's really cool. But then you also see it even more, and if we're talking about like storytelling as like, hey, this is why you should care, and if this room had stories, you go into their whiskey library, and you
Right.
see all their old brands over the years that they've collected, and they're excited about it. Like the people that show you that room are just like, it's not just Bardstown Bourbon. It's, hey, this is like our culture as a whole, as an industry, as a community. And that's really special. And that's something that I think people don't really understand that are just getting into bourbon.
I got to go in that room and sample a couple things
Ooh.
a few times.
Anything stand out?
The what is it? The Old Crow chess piece.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have heard stories.
Be still my heart.
They have them at Fraser too. At the
In the little speakeasy.
in the speakeasy room.
And what was it? If you collected all the bottles and like showed proof, you would get a felt chest
Yeah,
board.
I've seen those. but-
That's a lot of bourbon.
So for anybody that's not familiar with this room, though, can you describe your experience in there?
Yeah, it's just you sit at this table and it's just you're surrounded by bourbon behind glass, but it's vintage bourbon, so it's just about every brand you can imagine from the 20s, 30s, 40s,
Wow.
50s. I guess not during Prohibition, but before and after Prohibition.
Some of the bottles just have X's on it.
Right.
We don't ask
Don't drink.
questions.
It's medicinal.
Yeah.
Right. And then these chess pieces were kind of famous. They came out by the Old Crow distillery that's no longer in production. But they came out in the 60s when bourbon wasn't that big, or late 60s and going into the 70s. And so that's why all those decanters kind of came out. They were just trying to like get people to they'll want to collect this or collect that
gamifying
or collect
bourbon.
that. Yeah.
Sounds
So,
like
but
literally.
they were putting really good bourbon in those things because they couldn't give it away.
Yeah.
So
well, speaking of Bardstown bourbon, I also have I kind of recall that you were somewhat recently in the last few years involved in a tasting competition.
yeah.
Can you go into a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of the times I got to go in that room. I was one of the top 10 top whiskey tasters of the world, and that's what they call their competition. I don't believe that. That's, I don't believe that.
own
You're
that.
on
Own
the
it.
show.
All right.
There's only 10 people and you were one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But so no, it was during the pandemic, and you had to submit a video, and so I did that, and I was selected to be one of the 400 people of Kentucky, and then they whittled down that list, and I had to compete with all these people, kind of through Zoom at the time because it was 2020. Just in the Kentucky region, they had 9 other regions across the U.S. And so I won the Kentucky one. And so once they got down to 10 people from across the country, we all got to go to the distillery.
That's awesome.
And compete with all these different challenges, like kind of finding, blind tastes. Like, is it a wheated recipe? Is it rye? Can you name the brand?
Wow, that's intimidating.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
So I did not get number 1. I'll just say that.
But that I mean, that's really impressive. And I don't mean this is not towards you, but like you're not, in production. You're not in the industry of production. Like you are very familiar with the product and the brands
Yeah.
through your own work in media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all self-taught.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just years and years of going to hear master distillers speak and
Research.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's research.
Lots of research.
What was that preparation like though during that competition?
I knew that we had to taste some of their own products, so I scoured all the places around Louisville trying to find a collaboration of Bardstown Bourbon Company collaborations. They did one with Goodwood
Mhm.
that ended up being in the competition. So
Nice.
I went to Goodwood and tasted that, and I found some at Westport Whiskey and Wine. So I just wanted to taste everything, just kind of so I had a general idea of what it tasted like, and just the more bourbons you taste, and the more you increase your palate.
Yeah.
It's simple.
It's homework.
Yeah, homework.
Yeah, homework.
What are you doing
Exactly.
tonight? Homework.
Very important.
And all of that has led to your current role with a company called CaskX as the director of whiskey. Can you go into that role and that company at large?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because sometimes I don't even understand it. But it was during the pandemic, and I had been everyone kind of got let go at my previous job, and I think they found me through that Bardstown Bourbon Company competition.
That's cool.
I had it on my LinkedIn page, and they were looking for someone based in Louisville who knew about bourbon, who kind of had relationships with distilleries, and so it's kind of like a consulting gig. But basically I help them. They're a whiskey investment company. So what they do, and they started in Scotland and now they're in the US, but what they do is they buy new make bourbon from distilleries, and then they pay them to just age it for 8 years and the insurance and just let it sit there. In the meantime, they get investors to, buy I'll buy 12 barrels at a time or 24, kind of in lots of 12. And then the idea is it's like the stock market.
Yeah, it's like futures or something kind of.
Like you buy it low, and then in 8 years, people are going to be wanting to buy it for a lot
Interesting. That's
more
awesome.
than what you bought it when it's 0 years old.
Wow.
So
It's a big,
we're just 2 years into it. So we haven't sold anything yet. Our bourbon's still being laid down, but I'm just kind of.
So somewhere there's like an Indiana Jones like vault of just like all this stuff you guys are sitting on, just waiting for it to like pop off and then be like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
we got loads
We
of
got
this stuff.
and this.
That's awesome. That's super, super cool.
Yeah.
And you guys are sourcing this from different places?
Yeah,
or-
so we're partnering with a couple distilleries in Kentucky, Kentucky Artisan, Jackson Purchase, which is a distillery in the western part of the state, and MGP in Indiana.
Sure.
I just signed 3 in Tennessee,
Wow.
Oh, cool.
so I was excited about that.
And there's demand overseas.
No.
or
It's mostly U.S. clients.
Okay, all right.
Now, I think people from other countries can buy, but I mean, when they sell their scotch, it is people from all over the world
Okay.
that buy the scotch. They do it similarly in Scotland. They buy scotch casks. Ugh.
That is a bit of a tongue
Scotch
twister.
But to be clear, like this isn't just some person that's like, oh, myself and my friends, we have a store pick with Liquor Barn. Like it's folks that are interested in starting their own brand.
Yeah, well, mostly I think 90% of them will just sell. It's just investors.
Okay.
Now they do have an interest in bourbon. You have to be an accredited investor to even participate.
Oh wow.
That's the government rule. I know.
Yeah.
I can't even.
It's like you have to have a
buy,
net worth of
yeah.
like $1 million or something like that to even get in the
it's not-
door.
like you have to make 200,000 a
Yeah.
year, I think.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
crazy.
have net worth or something.
Yeah.
So I think most of them are just buying low to sell high, which I think I don't understand the
That's
stock
what distillers are doing.
Yeah.
yeah. And then, but some of them, so another part of the aspect of the job is the clients get a free trip to Kentucky, and I show them around to Kentucky Artisan, who we work with, and then I just take them to Bardstown, let them go wild.
Heck yeah.
And but some of them have expressed interest, like, oh, maybe I'll sell 11 of them in bottle, 1 barrel.
Oh.
Like they're all huge bourbon fans, and so it's fun to see.
So they're just
excitement.
making a bet that in 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. Now that you're taking a risk because, what if the bubble bursts, or as people say, I don't think that's going to happen, but
It's
you
still-
are,
yeah.
it's the stock market. Like you
Yeah.
are taking a risk.
Is this a one size fits all, or are they kind of building a profile between flavors that they like?
So each of our, distilleries, a lot of people will buy, like, I want 12 from this distillery, 12 from that distillery, 12 Tennessee whiskeys and 12 bourbons and 12 MGPs, but some people will buy year after year, like, because they want different ages of.
Okay.
So they have their own portfolio.
Must be nice.
Kind of. Yeah, I know. Like, share the wealth.
We need to get that accreditation.
All right.
The three of us, we can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We might need Sarah too.
Yeah.
I know. I'm doing all this legwork and I can't even
We
afford
get a
barrel.
free trip to Kentucky, guys.
Can you show us around, please?
Or Tennessee. I'll tell you. We're starting those in April.
Let's go to Chattanooga.
Heck yeah.
When I hear banjos, I turn around. So
Yeah.
I turn around and start dancing personally, but that's just me.
Well, to that point, we usually ask our guests to participate in a forced show and tell segment.
Oh, yeah.
We told you the rules of the game before we
Yes.
get started. So, what's the first thing that you'd like to?
Do you want
to present?
the drink or non-drink?
Let's do the drink.
It's always one thing you love that is beer or beverage related, and then one thing.
Oh,
that is,
no.
hell yeah!
Oh my gosh!
So
Hell yeah!
My friend brought this back from Japan.
Wow.
This was before they came out with Zima.
Ladies
the
and gentlemen,
second
she is
time.
holding a bottle of Zima.
But it's in Japanese,
Yeah, hell, what
The
Japanese
label.
Zima.
Oh,
which is where
great.
it was
we've been
originated.
Oh, really? I remember the
believe
old
it.
school commercials. People just dancing and like in the streets of New York, or maybe it was Tokyo, just like drinking Zima and like grilling in garbage cans and stuff. Oh man, I haven't had a Zima in a long time.
Well, they came back out with it like two
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago,
yeah.
2 or 3 years. No, probably 4 years ago. I
I'll
don't
just throw it out there. This was made before I was born.
Have you ever had a Zima,
Ah.
David Satterley?
No.
even
Oh
when
my
it came back out like
No, when it
3 years ago,
re-debuted,
or
yeah.
when was that? 5
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, I'm older than 5.
Well, but have you had it though?
Oh no, I have no idea what this is.
So I think they did something to it when they came back out with it because it wasn't as good. I mean, this is what I drank in college. The
drank some Zima,
original
yeah.
OG.
I was told that you put Skittles in this.
No, the Jolly Ranchers.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Do you have those?
No, I'm actually not going to open it. I
That's
know.
okay.
It's show and
That's
tell,
okay.
not
It's fine.
show and taste.
I just keep it on my shelf now. But I'm sure the carbonation is long gone.
Yeah,
I don't think you would want it.
you're not missing out on that much.
It's not fizzing.
Yeah.
No.
How would you describe the taste of Zima?
I mean, these are in the days before White Claw, and
Yeah, it's a light,
So-
fizzy drink. It's like
it was like Sprite, lemon lime.
Yeah. it's. I was like, because
but it's
Even-
malt liquor.
But even the cap on it has like a pull top.
I do like.
well,
that.
I think that's the Japanese thing.
Okay.
But back in the 90s, it was twist.
So this is OG Zima.
Well, it was after Zima had left the U.S.
Okay.
So I'm guessing
I'm
like
just trying to find like an age.
2000.
Best Buy statement.
Oh, well, okay. So, no, I don't know. They're just code numbers. I don't
Best
know.
Buy.
Yeah,
I think you might need a Japanese translation to
Yeah,
get
probably.
the data out of there.
that's
That's
impressive.
incredible.
Well, to that point, I've been in your basement. That sounds weird.
What's down there?
But I mean, if you were to walk into her basement, you would be like, where am I right now? Because like you have a little like museum display of POS down there.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What are some of the items that
Point of
people-
sale?
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant.
Point of sale,
POS.
not piece of shit. Point of sale.
was
Point of
like,
sale
what?
items. Like what is it? The
Just like the merch that the in cap display.
Oh.
You have a coffin.
Like,
Oh,
you have a coffin.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Neon
Yeah, I do have
signs,
a
tin tackers,
Coffin.
all that kind of fun like beer swag or beer whiskey associated
Yeah.
swag.
and all the bottles throughout the years.
Yeah, yeah. So I have I have a lot of bottles because I do open them. Like people are like, why don't
Good.
you open it?
Good.
Yeah, totally.
But I have so many open
This is filled with water and you recapped it. Is that
that
what
I'm
you're
not
telling
going to
us?
open more if
Yeah.
I already have so many open.
I have a friend
just don't
from
have enough
California
friends.
that stayed at my house once. She could probably open some
No,
stuff for you. Yeah.
keep her away. She'll go after my Blantons.
So what do you think happened to Zima? And like, so Zima died
I
right
would
when
say
the craft beer trend was starting to take off.
I went to college like 95 to 99. And it was huge.
Yeah.
But then by the time I got out, I don't think it was anywhere. So,
But that, to me, that's when like beer started kind of coming up.
yeah.
Like Sierra Nevada and
Yeah,
Sam
yeah,
Adams. And so
yeah.
then craft
Maybe that's
beer
it,
kind of
yeah.
was getting market share and tapering down.
So this is kind of like the hair band.
Yeah,
In-
right.
in
That's a
your
great
Nirvana.
analogy, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
You got rid of.
and then like, what is craft beer if it was a band?
Did Courtney Love kill Zima?
Oh.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no.
Yes.
But what I'm more confused by then though is that the return of Zima was
Mhm.
in 2016,
Yeah.
2017, and that was right before seltzers really took
I was
off.
gonna
So
say
like,
that.
why
Yeah.
That
didn't it stick
It
around?
was nasty. And I think they only purposely did it for like one summer.
Because
I
everybody
don't know
likes the
why.
retro kind of
Yeah.
throwback vibes or whatever.
I don't remember.
But then they tasted it.
who owns it now.
If it's Japanese,
It
it,
was
could
some-
be like
it
curious
was
No,
something.
it was like Molson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coors
I
or
think I was gonna say
Coors.
maybe Coors. So,
Oh, I don't know.
well, that I did not expect you
Yeah,
to
to bust
pull
out
out
the
some
Zima.
Zima.
Yeah, that was good.
That was surprising.
But I do have some old tin signs of Zima from the old Phoenix Hill Tavern.
Were you a frequent
Yes.
guest at Phoenix Hill Tavern?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Do you have
was.
any of the before they tore it down? I know that they were like auctioning things off.
Yeah, that's how
Ah,
I got
nice.
the Zima.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
The
We talk a
Zima
lot about like
signs.
trends inside of the industry, and we kind of just talked about the birth and decline of like Zima and
Mhm.
stuff, and then craft beer ebbed. And it's hard to say that craft beer is dead unless you're Sam
No.
Cruz, but it definitely seems like other products are coming more into market prominence. Like I think we read recently that bourbon and spirits obviously just crushed craft beer in the latest quarter, and I think like
And
hard seltzer
chain
is
retail,
still
yeah.
just absolutely dominating the market.
Yeah.
Do you have any insights on just when and why styles change, or maybe even better, just anything you see coming up right now that's like surprising or interesting that,
I
that the
have
kids
to,
haven't caught on to yet?
Yeah, I have to keep up on the figures of whiskey, American whiskey in particular. And I know that this year we just surpassed vodka, but tequila is still
Mhm.
number one, unfortunately.
People keep saying that's going to continue to grow too. All those like agave spirits or whatever
Yeah.
just seem to be gaining popularity as well. I don't know what that's
Why?
about. I don't know. What's the Mad Men of tequila? Is there like a show where people are just like partying?
There's not.
It's
I
George Clooney's tequila, right?
Oh yeah, that was a big
okay.
one.
So I don't like celebrity tequila.
Yeah, I don't.
That-
Yeah,
that
I don't like
doesn't-
celebrity anything.
To me, it makes no sense.
Mm-mm.
I think it was Michael that finally told me one day that like all of the tequila is made out of like 6-7 major facilities, which you could lend that to like MGP on a parallel. Mezcal really blows my mind, but I don't think people like it, so
Mhm.
I'll just stick to bourbon.
Yeah.
It's got way more variety too.
Yeah.
Well, you're about to experience a different type of whiskey. I hear sources
Yes.
tell me that
Has
you,
everybody done? Oh, besides me.
Oh no, take your time.
Oh, she's professional.
We were both segueing into something else, but we can let's
Busted out.
segue into this though. I like that.
Hey, we'll see that Peerless like warmed up nicely as it breathed in the glass a little bit.
So I brought a bottle that I just got. I get some samples sometimes so that I can review them. And this is just out this month. I don't even think it hit stores yet. But Heaven Hill just released the Bernheim wheat whiskey, but at a barrel strength, barrel proof.
Heck yeah!
So they have the regular Bernheim you could probably find in stores, but this one is 118.8 proof. So this is a wheat whiskey, meaning it's at least 51% wheat. I think the mash bill on this, it was like 51 wheat, 37 corn, and 12 malted barley.
It checks out.
Yeah.
The math checks out.
Sure.
I'm not good at math.
Same here, especially after a couple of those.
But so I wanted to bring this here to see what you all think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the story behind the Bernheim brand? Do they do like a special working together? Or
So
is it
Bernheim
just,
is named after their Bernheim distillery in Louisville, actually.
okay.
So since their fire in the 90s, they bought this huge facility kind of near where Brown Foreman is, kind of downtownish / the western part of downtown. And so every drop of Heaven Hill is made here in Louisville, and then it's carted out to Bardstown to age.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay.
Since the fire, since the late 90s,
So my
96.
my great grandparents rather lived in Bardstown.
Ah.
My uncle worked at the facility
Yeah.
as it was burning down.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was fine, but yeah.
All right.
Well, how was the bourbon?
But I had no idea that Heaven Hill was made here
Yeah.
in Louisville in to Bardstown.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that going
They
there.
make a lot of booze in that facility. It's
I just filled my glass
crazy.
first.
oh, you're good. You're good.
I don't know why. Oops.
This will be my first Bernheim ever. I don't
Same
think
here.
I've-
Same here.
I don't think I've
Yeah,
had
it's not
any-
one that I would drink regularly. It's not ever on my radar. But you had me at barrel proof.
Yeah.
I do
Oh, it
like
smells
that.
really good.
And I feel like wheat in general, like between wheated whiskeys and wheated bourbons, people are into wheat maybe more. Is that that's something you're noticing?
I mean, I think it's half and half. I mean, you can say that Pappy's wheated bourbon, obviously, and Weller and Maker's Mark and Larceny.
I really like
So-
wheated things. They just
Yeah.
have that smooth kind of creaminess to it that you don't get with just, more barley or more corn or whatnot.
Yeah.
But then it's like,
It's not as sharp as a rye or like a
Exactly.
high corn.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of gives that like pungent, like you smell it and you're like, okay, I need air.
So I'll read this real fast.
that drink's super smooth for the high proof too.
Ooh, girl. Dang.
Bernheim Original Wheat Whiskey uses soft winter wheat as the main grain in its recipe and represents the first truly new American whiskey style to be introduced since Prohibition. The newest expression, Bernheim Barrel Proof, is made from barrels of wheat whiskey aged from 7 to 9 years that are mingled together and bottled uncut without chill filtration.
Ooh.
I'm not mad at that at all. That's really nice. That's
Yeah.
really special.
It's pleasant.
So
Makes your lips tingle.
I could.
straight from the barrel, 7 to 9 year blend.
Yeah. Wheat.
And again, something I've never had. So that's super cool and a good connection
Sweet.
to make. But that's the way to learn. People ask, in beer all the time, like, you see all these different ingredients and different hops and different yeast strains in the beer world that translates into bourbon, in different ways with the mash profiles and like we're saying sour mashing and then just the different processes of each place.
Mhm.
But kind of like you were alluding to, if you're bourbon curious, the best way to kind of get your head around it is just to find a few writers that you like or find a few people that talk about new stuff coming out, follow them and just try to hunt down some of the places that are making things that sound super interesting and just be mindful while you drink it. Take some
Yeah.
notes if you're that kind of a nerdy person, or like apps can be useful for that. Just kind of tracking what you like, tracking what you don't necessarily like, and then just kind of starting to connect those dots. If you find something you really like, a lot of these places too, I think they're a little more tight-lipped than some of the like breweries are, although a lot of breweries are tight-lipped on their recipes too, which is silly. But you can usually kind of trace down, the rough proportions of the mash profile, or just learn about the distillery, or even better to go take a tour and you'll learn everything. But
As much as they want to tell you.
as much as they want to tell you,
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
But no, just that going back to your point, like being mindful while you drink things like that, and just that's really the way to enjoy it the most, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One thing about a barrel proof is it always, to me at least, kind of like coats your tongue,
Mhm.
kind of like shocks it. Do you
Mhm.
your personal preference? Do you prefer like a higher proof or a lower?
I do. I prefer. I mean, I want it to taste right how it tastes right out of the barrel.
mhm.
Like I don't want watered down anything. Like anything 100 or above is kind of in my wheelhouse.
Okay. Yeah, I steer that way too. One of my least favorite brands is Basil Hayden because
Oh,
it's just too low,
That-
and I'm like, I
yeah.
don't get it. It's not bourbon. Like,
Yeah.
it is, but to me, it's just like watered
Yeah, it's
down.
like it's the lowest you can go
Like-
to legally be a bourbon in 80 proofs. Now,
Yeah.
I mean,
Interesting.
they do that because I mean they're going after a different demographic, and it's a good gateway bourbon. Being that low, it doesn't have as much burn, and so people can kind of get into it.
I do.
And then go from there.
I do like their toasted, and
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
like their red wine cask
Yeah.
finish.
I had that one. Yeah, it was much better.
I don't mind
those
their
are good.
dark rye. Actually,
I've been meaning to try that. Monic, right up the road in Schnitzelberg, they I think they have that, and they recommend doing an old fashioned with the Basil
Ooh,
Hayden dark
okay.
rye.
I can see
Yeah.
that being pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Do you have 2 or 3 different more approachable bourbons that you would kind of just lean
Yeah.
into and say, if you're bourbon curious?
For listeners, some
Yeah.
stuff that's not just your basic Buffalo Trace, but is
Mhm.
interesting to you.
I mean, I started my journey with Maker's Mark, and I think a lot of people do. It's wheat. It's a wheated bourbon, and it's,
Not that Buffalo Trace is basic. I love Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, no.
It's not basic. You can't find it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's delicious. Just to say that,
Um,
put that out there. Sorry.
But no, I mean my everyday. Not I don't drink every day, but
You're among friends.
yeah, Old Forester, the 100 proof.
Yes.
It's only
Yep.
a couple bucks more than the 86,
Yes.
but it's worth those couple bucks.
It's
Like,
a lot more flavor.
Yeah,
It's a
and
ton more.
I finally heard from somebody at this distillery they pick the barrels differently, so it's not like they take all these barrels and just add more water or don't add enough. They're all different flavor profiles, so they pick them differently. So, I mean, I get a lot more flavor from the 100 than the 86.
Tend to stick to 100 proof too. Old Granddad Bottle and Bond
yeah.
always comes to
Yeah.
mind. Old Foe 100 Orange Label.
Yep,
That one always does the trick.
you can still get a big handle at Costco.
Don't tell people
No.
that.
Oh, you want
Like
you?
20 bucks.
We going to Costco soon?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Costco.
That
I am basic bourbon. I have to admit it. I don't do like what you guys do. If I'm getting bourbon at home, I usually buy like
What you
Buffalo
can-
Trace
Yeah.
or like Bullet Bourbon or like Old Forester is one that I buy a lot and enjoy. But I don't know. It's fun to like. I think the only reason is because I never really delved into kind of the backstories of it as much as I have with beer. But there's
Yeah.
so much there that's so
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
honorable mention to Evan Williams Black Label.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly affordable,
Yeah.
approachable bourbon.
And there's not to jump on the Brown Foreman bandwagon, but Cooper's Craft, the premium one,
Never had that.
it's like, and it's only $30.
Really?
There's the regular. I can't remember what they call it, select or premium or something, but it's the way they put these grooves in the barrels that are different.
Sure.
And I think they age it a little bit more than Cooper's Craft.
I'm excited for
Interesting.
Brown Foreman to get into the rum game.
Oh yeah, I
that'll
saw
be fun.
that. Yeah, very cool.
Those light spirits.
So you're saying they like score the barrels on the
Yeah,
inside?
so they take a barrel and then it's kind of like they put grooves in it.
Just to increase the surface area
Yeah.
and change the way the liquid goes in and out, I
And
guess.
they originally did that with the Jack Daniel's Sinatra.
Yes.
And so because they own their own cooperage, they can experiment however they want. So they're like, oh, let's do that because they own Jack Daniel's, obviously. So they're like, let's use that same type of barrel with Cooper's Craft. And so they did.
We shouldn't spill the beans, but any craft breweries listening, groove your barrels.
Yeah.
It might be something to do with your stouts.
Yeah.
Groove those barrels, baby.
I think you just want them wet mostly.
Wet and groovy.
Wet and groovy.
Yeah.
And we're going back to a time where I didn't exist.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the future sustainability of barrels as a whole?
So working with CaskX and asking distilleries for their bourbon, the biggest obstacle we've gotten so far is, we can't get any barrels.
Mhm.
And I was down in Tennessee last year, and even at Jack Daniel's, even though they own their own cooperage, they're worried. It's because it's not an oak issue. it's the supply chain. It's like we don't have enough people to go into the forest to cut down the oaks,
Mhm.
to chop them up. And
Yeah.
so all those people are, like, I mean, I think that stuff's working its way out and people
could be
are going back to work. And
It's not necessarily as automated as a lot of other things too. Cooperage is still
Right.
pretty hands-on, if I
Right.
understand it correctly.
Mhm.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
you can machine a lot of those parts and have them through an
Yeah.
But
assembly line, but at the end of the day, a person pretty much is involved
Mhm.
in each barrel.
Oh, a person has to put the rings
Yeah,
on
right.
the
Yeah.
barrel.
But even beyond that, it's just like you said. I mean, it's going into the forest and
It's
like
the
chopping the tree
and then
down like
the
George
trucks,
Washington. You know, I mean,
He did not chop that. Oh no, wait, he did, and then he
did.
didn't lie.
He told a lie.
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, that's something I've never even considered because, like, working with different brands over the years, we've talked about, different like white oak, issues and sustainability issues.
Yeah.
But until right now, I've never really considered the idea of just like, the labor.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, the truck driver,
Yeah.
Mhm.
driving the wood. And I mean, I think Coopers are expanding as much as they can and getting more workers and stuff. It's, it's getting the wood out of the forest. Because they're replanting
Mhm.
things as quickly as they cut
Yeah,
them down.
I mean, you mentioned Maker's Mark. I mean, the White Oak Initiative. I mean, they are working on sustainability, but
yeah.
they only do so much.
And most of the cooperages, also have that same program where whatever they cut down, they plant,
But the reason all those woods work so well is because those are slower growing trees, which just makes the wood more dense and more filled with sugars and tannins and those different words that end with "een" that I can never pronounce, like flavorines and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it takes time to grow a good tree to make a good, American white oak barrel out of or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I think at
picturing a
least
really good
60.
like bourbon commercial in my head right now. Like,
it's a Super Bowl commercial.
yeah. A guy's cutting down a tree. He's making a barrel. He's doing some moonshine in the woods. He's filling it. Anyway,
Yeah.
Buffalo Trace, get in touch with us. He can, we'll talk.
I ask just for the preliminary of, it has to be a fresh white oak American barrel. So like, you have to have that supply. And it's been discussed a little bit about like different techniques to kind of like maybe like shaving down the char and recharring and things like that, just to build that sustainability in. But I think a lot of people don't understand, like these barrels go through hell. Like they are pushed and muled around and rolled down a, conduit for a while and then sat in a warehouse for years. And, by the time they get to beer, sometimes they're leaky. They go the heads of them leak depending on which side you put it on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, like you said, even after the fact, just to maintain that structure as a vessel.
Yeah, and then distilleries will get it back from the breweries for a cask finished product.
Yeah.
So sources tell me that you are going to Ireland pretty soon.
Yeah.
Are you excited to try some Irish whiskey?
I am. I've been one time before, but it was before I really was into whiskey.
So what are you looking forward to in that trip, beverage and maybe food wise as well? Or is it just like we're not even worrying about
no,
this? Let's
I'd
not
like
think
to
about
go
this.
to some distilleries. So I haven't reached out to her yet, but a friend of mine just started a job at Pierce Lines, and he owns a distillery in Dublin somewhere. So I want to connect with her and see if I could check that distillery out. Of course, Jameson is in Dublin.
Oh yeah.
I probably could get into the Brown Foreman. What is that? Slane.
Yep.
But it's about, so we don't have a car. Neither. I'm going with two friends of mine, and nobody wants to drive on the other side of the road. So we're going to travel by train.
Hell yeah. That'll be fun.
So I can't just like, it's 45 minutes away, but like, how do I get there?
That's an expensive Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to be wasted in an hour, so can you also come take me?
Just wait.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know COVID changed everything, so this might not be the case anymore, but I remember my dad went to the Jameson distillery, and at the end, they do the tasting. And apparently at their tasting that's when they put Jameson in front of you, but they also put things like, okay, here's Jack Daniels, here's some other products, here's competition. So like,
Cool.
This is how smooth our Irish whiskey is. So that's something to watch out for. Please
Yeah.
report back if that's
Yeah,
been
I
your
will.
experience too,
Interesting.
because that'd be interesting.
Me being a noob, how would you all describe the differences between, American, let's say like Tennessee whiskey, Kentucky bourbon, and like Irish whiskey? Are there big, if you had to just like define those differences in like 3 or 4 words? Is it just process? Is it taste?
Well,
Is it marketing?
So, I mean, it's kind of common knowledge. Like Tennessee whiskey is bourbon.
Yeah,
So,
made in Tennessee.
yeah.
So fake bourbon is
So
what I like to call
I mean,
it.
it's debatable, but I'm on the side that it's bourbon.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, they can have their own category. That's fine, but it is bourbon. There's one tiny step they do different, but it doesn't add anything. It just takes away.
Charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal
Gotcha.
mellowing. So, according to the rules, as long as you don't add something.
How about Irish whiskey? What's
So
the
Irish
main
whiskey-
difference
That's a
there?
different
So
monster.
yeah, so that's they use different grains. I want to say mostly malted barley. I mean, that's Scotland mostly just uses malted barley, but they do use rye and other things. But they don't use new barrels, so we send all of our used barrels over there. And then I think Irish whiskey blends a lot. They take different blends of whiskey.
Yeah. And I imagine they
haven't
source
really-
most of their grain from the native, like from
Yeah.
the Isles or whatever. In
Mhm.
beer making,
Oh, yeah.
everybody, we can't get it hardly right now. Everybody wants the Maris Otter malt, which is like the real nice, like North Country British malt. It's just a lot more robust and like full bodied and grainy in a good way, not a husky way, than American two-row. So
Yeah.
maybe that's a difference too. That'd be super interesting to explore the history and culture around all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think Irish whiskey is a lot smoother, I think, than bourbon. So the climate over there, you have to take that into account. That bourbon's not going in and out of the barrel, and plus it's a used barrel or whiskey. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about that.
So Tennessee whiskey versus bourbon, marketing BS, and debate for nerds. Irish whiskey and American whiskey or bourbon, cultural differences, and then
it's all
process
whiskey.
differences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Cul-
wait,
cultural
definitely
differences,
different.
Well, just in terms of like the barrels and
Yeah.
the reusing and the sourcing of ingredients.
It's all about the
perhaps.
dialect.
Irish
That's-
whiskey boy. I'll put you straight.
No, I don't think they're using corn in Ireland.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
For that.
Exactly.
No, no, no.
You're right. They don't use.
We did just do yesterday. Actually, we brewed a collab with Noble Funk, brewing
nice.
out of Louisville. They have an excellent facility down in the Sobro neighborhood, South Broadway. And we did an Irish red with a touch of rye in it. So it's
Oh,
going to
wow.
be a little flair on an Irish red recipe. The first runnings of it were about as dark as this bourbon. And then by
Wow.
the end of the
It got
day,
a lot lighter.
it got a lot lighter. So I'm excited to see how that comes out.
That sounds good.
But we used, some of the caramel malts, a little bit of crystal, very little bit of crystal, and a little touch of rye there. So that'll be coming out around St. Patrick's Day. Do a little debut with Molly Malone's. Have a good time, put that out. It's fun because I know like bourbon people go and do like single barrel picks, and like sometimes we just get to collaborate with breweries and make our own beer. So that is pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, that's how we do that. But yeah, we will have a release party prior to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Louisville at Molly Malone's on Thursday, March 9th. So 2 days before the St. Patrick's Day festivities on the 11th. That's going to be really fun for everybody involved. Noble Funk was really excited for the idea. Molly Malone's is going to be like, they have just been so excited for the idea to have a local brewery do a special release for them. So it's going to be fun. And then, if you're hanging out, if you're in Louisville and you go to the St. Patrick's Day festivities and you happen to stumble into Molly Malone's, try that beer
Yeah.
of ours, please.
I would say too, like a lot of people have associations with Irish Red, with like the big Irish Red, which the one we get frequently around here is Killian's. Killian's is not really. I mean, it is an Irish Red because they call it that, and it's kind of an American invention anyway. But yeah, come try like a locally made, carefully sourced. It's going to be the night and day difference than Killian's.
And it was made with love.
Yeah.
David and I were there. It was, of course,
Yes.
made with love.
I put a lot of my own
Lots
love.
of love. Okay, well, I don't want it.
I don't want it anymore.
So I'm out.
Yikes. But yeah, be on the lookout for that March 9th. Stay tuned for all those details on times. Sarah, thanks so much for your time
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
But before we wrap up, what is your second non-beverage
shoot.
show and tell?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to skip that.
No.
Darn it.
Darn.
Well, this might be older than some of you. Definitely.
Is it that reusable bag for the?
No. Where is that from? So I don't ask. But this is Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth perfume.
Ooh,
That
baby. Wow.
I loved when I was about
I think my hair is
13.
curling just like smelling it.
So I smell. I mean, I haven't used it since junior high, but yeah, it smells like my teenage years.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Awkwardness and desperation and embraces. So
At any point, have you thought about throwing that out over the years, and
No.
you were just like, no, I
Nah,
would
you
never.
gotta keep it at this
no
point.
way.
Yeah.
Does,
Can
No,
I smell the bottle
yeah.
without opening it?
You can open it. I mean, you can even
Oh, I'm
spray
getting
it.
enough through the
Yeah, I
glass.
wouldn't.
You know,
I
it's
think
kind of nice.
I went to an '80s party and I sprayed it once. Like, I think,
John, you don't have to make out
and
with it.
I got everybody
I feel like
sick.
I do all of a sudden.
Like everyone got like nauseous,
Yeah.
sick. You know, like someone.
Yep, that's perfume.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
it smells
I want
like
to say
electric
it's from
youth.
'88.
Hell yeah.
I want to say
This
that's
is
when her album
history.
came out.
History.
Oh wait, you went
Debbie
to, you,
Gibson.
you went to the show. Here, like what? 3 years
When
ago?
was it?
2 years ago? You were there? Yeah,
I can't remember.
it was recent.
Are you sure you
Was
didn't
she
just
here?
like fill this with bourbon? It looks
Ah.
brown.
No,
What the podcast listeners won't see either is that, what do you call that thing? The dabber? The thing that you...
No, that's just so her album was called Electric Youth, so they put that.
Yeah.
It looked like electric.
I was going to say, it's
but
not just
that's
like
actually a
it's-
sprayer.
Oh, okay.
So it
gotcha,
doesn't do
gotcha.
anything.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, for the listeners, it's like got a neon curly Q around it. Very, very 80s vibes.
yeah, cologne spritz. No, I remember
Ooh.
our mutual friend and my old boss.
Oh,
Courtney.
Tiffany. You're thinking
I'm
Tiffany.
thinking Tiffany. Yeah.
Yeah, we did go see her at Headliners
Hell
Okay.
yeah. Hell yeah.
about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, that may be a completely different.
So
genre,
they
but-
were rivals back in the day.
Oh.
And so I was a Debbie Gibson
Did Tiffany
fan.
have a perfume line?
No, she just kind of played in malls.
That's
So-
awesome.
I didn't like her then because she kind of sang a lot of covers. I'm like, write your own songs, girl. But I met them both through the years, and Tiffany a little bit nicer.
So you brought us a Zima, and then you
Yeah.
got us the... I'm getting
Yeah,
like...
I had to look at. I don't know.
Okay,
who
all right.
Yeah.
Debbie Gibson's a hottie.
Right, come on. 80s like 80s vibes are strong is all I'm
She was
gonna
like
say.
the 80s Britney Spears.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Except probably arguably better.
She wrote her own songs.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There you go.
I think
But
Britney,
Tiffany did not.
I think Britney's dad wrote her songs or something. Like
Yeah.
that. So-
Leave Britney alone. Leave Britney alone.
Well, apparently we all have to go listen to some Debbie Gibson
Yeah.
tonight.
Please.
But before we do you have anything upcoming that you'd like to plug or give a shout out to?
No. Just barbellelou.com
Yeah.
is my website. And that's it. You can find me at the back door on Thursdays at 5.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
That's a great shout out.
See you there.
Standing meeting.
But you are a great resource. And, Bar Belle, say the website one more time.
Barbell Lou,
Yeah.
like LOU.
If you guys are if you're bourbon curious and you want to find ways, that you're a great resource for people to just kind of get, you could say like an inside scoop, or just somebody who understands the culture and the lingo, who tells the stories in a fun way, with a lot of like the pre-punk rock late 80s hair band metal
Yes.
energy that you so uniquely bring to the table in your
Well, thank
writing.
you.
So yeah, it's a great follow.
I'll take it.
John, what do you got to plug?
Nothing. I'm going to Charleston, South Carolina tomorrow.
Oh.
I've opened this store, as we said, about 7 years ago, and I've not taken a vacation in those 7 years. So tomorrow morning about 5 a.m.
Wow.
we're getting on the road. Fatty Lumpkin, my 2002 busted up Toyota Tacoma, is staying here. I rented a Tesla 2022 Model Y, I think. We're going to take the dogs for some stupid reason. Frankie's over there very gloating at the
Can you
moment.
rent that at the
Yeah,
the
we got it.
Enterprise?
Yeah, we were down at Hertz at the
Wow.
airport this morning. I picked it up. So
I've never been offered a
I'll
Tesla.
give you guys an we'll get like a review on the podcast. I went from a shitty Toyota Tacoma to a 2022 Tesla, and this is what happened
Yes.
next week. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. So it'll be too late by the time you guys hear this, but maybe I'll have some good brewery reports, and I'll bring back some good beer for us to try as well. Yeah. So shout out to Charleston and Teslas and my Tacoma. I'm not going to forget about you.
David, what do you got?
I'm gonna shout out roller skating. If there's ever an opportunity to pick up a new hobby when you're 25 plus, I would suggest roller
I
skating.
no longer limber.
yeah, when if you no longer care about the bones in your body and are willing to break all of them, go roller skating.
Champs.
Especially a Champs
really?
on adult skate night
I've been there
at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night.
Actually, shout out Champs, their main sponsor of CT scans that I'm getting tomorrow for my elbow that I broke at Champs. So
Do you want to tell the sob story? You might get another bottle of bourbon sent in from the Patreon.
no,
All right,
we're
well.
good.
I was
I
there.
think
It's not-
enough has been implied.
I was there. There's no sad story. I just saw him holding his arm like,
The ground's a lot farther away than it was when we were 10, and
Yeah.
it's a lot harder.
It's much harder.
Yeah.
I think that matter
much
has
less bendy.
assimilated into a tighter structure.
Yeah, it's
And-
that it's the expansion of the universe. Yeah.
No, it's a contraction.
Right,
Like
exactly.
it's all more dense now.
Yeah.
Including me.
Yeah,
Drink more bourbon.
exactly.
Okay, so
yeah.
before we leave, I went into this stone sober, and I'm definitely confident if I had 3 beers, I would have tuck and rolled. So
Yeah,
Dang it.
they do say that in like car acts. Actually, let's not even go there.
let's
not go there.
Let's not.
But it does like relax you a little bit.
yeah,
You
there
don't
would have
tense
been
up as much.
a half a little second for the fight or flight kicked in. I just slammed my arm on the ground. So
Ugh.
yeah, because you're trying to protect yourself. But had you just like been loose enough to
if
not
I
care,
just wrecked
right, just
myself
like-
instead
yeah.
of protecting myself, I'd been
Well,
fine.
thoughts and prayers.
T's and
Well,
P's.
the best Mexican restaurant in Louisville is over right next to Champs.
El Mariachi.
El Mariachi.
Oh,
Yeah, you know.
Damn.
Yeah, El
Yeah.
Mirage is great.
So I recommend just the street tacos.
Shout out
What do you got for us,
El
Moy?
Mariachi.
Nothing this week. Just we're new to the YouTube game. We're posting these videos and shorts on YouTube. Check that out. Louisville Ale Trail. Subscribe, rate, listen, share. That goes a long way.
Share.
We also have a newsletter, so subscribe to that newsletter and listen to read what we have to say monthly. Just once a month. That's all. Just give us a click and make me feel good when I look at the analytics. So that's all I
We're
got.
doing all this research for you guys. We want you to reap the full benefit.
Yeah,
of
we're
all
doing-
of
we're
our,
doing all this
research.
homework.
Yeah, homework.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
See you guys next week.